Welcome, everybody, to our session on professional learning and really learning and growing with Twitter and on demand professional learning in that realm. I am joined, or I guess I should say, I am Patrick Hausammann, and I am joined by Miss Abby French. And Abby, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we'll take it from there.
Thanks, Patrick. So I'm Abby French, and it's really great to be here continuing our discussion, Patrick. And it's been a pleasure working with you on different projects and different fronts. I'm excited today to talk a little bit about my journey into not only student-centered learning, which is something I'm really passionate about. I am part of a student-centered learning team of sixth grade teachers. We kind of pioneered this effort and endeavor to try to revamp the way we did things, to curate and cultivate learning experiences on our team, cross-curricular, centered around putting kids at the center of their learning, having kids doing, not having like education, like learning happen to them, but happen through them. And I've explained a little bit about that in our first talk. But today I really want to talk to everyone about the power of connecting and leading your own learning as a professional.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that'll be a constant theme throughout when we talk this time, and that is trying to align some of those best practices that we see as awesome things in the classroom, like student-led learning and letting them have voice and choice in different things. But often that doesn't necessarily transcend into the world of professional learning for teachers. And some of those best tenets kind of fall off to the side, and we have set and get sessions, and we have one size fits all sessions. And traditionally, a lot of times, those things dominate our professional learning landscape in education. And I think one of the first things I was going to ask, and I may have partially answered it there, and maybe you can elaborate too, or see if it's the same thing that's happened for you. But a lot of times when you bring up the word professional development or professional learning, teachers kind of cringe, or it's not necessarily a positive thing. Have you kind of experienced that as well?
I think we all have. I think that, and I don't think that it's ever anyone's intention. I don't think it's your building level admin or a speaker that's brought in or someone from, central office or school board office delivering some professional development, but it's never their intention to make teachers feel negative or to add one more thing or burden or just bore. I mean, there are so many demands during a school day that are put on everyone that's part of the community as professionals, whether you are a building, like I said, administrator or related arts or your class core content teacher, whoever you are interacting with students, you are interacting with your colleagues. There are so many decisions that have to be made that happen spur of the moment. There's so many issues going on that you have to act on that you can't plan for, that by the end of the day, when there's a faculty workshop or when it's a day of professional learning, yeah, it can feel like just another thing. And that's a shame, because we need to have things, we need to pour back into ourselves. We need to, expand our thinking, and we need to be curious, and we need to constantly be pursuing best practice, best norms. And that takes investigation, and it takes, it takes learning. And what kind of conditions does that happen in the most authentically? And I think that, when it's a faculty workshop, you better have you better have a table of food and drink,
Mm-hmm.
and and then you just cross your fingers and hope for the best. And teachers are some of the hardest sells you're going to have as an audience.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you
It's rough.
nailed it, that it's definitely always done with the best of intentions,
Yes.
and there are, without a doubt, sometimes things that everybody needs. So it makes sense for everybody to be in the same space at the same time. But unfortunately, I think we fall into the kind of the status quo, or it's just easier to keep doing it that way, even if it's not necessarily the best fit for different things, because not everybody's going to want to use or need to use the same piece of technology. That may work in one person's room, it may tank or just not be a fit at all in the next room down the line. So I think we definitely have to start embracing some of those best practices on the side of people that kind of offer those developments or kind of create those opportunities. But I also think, just like we encourage our students to kind of lead their own, I think teachers on the whole really need to start embracing that mentality as well, as far as going out and getting learning for themselves and looking for it and actively engaging in it. Um,
Well,
yep, go ahead.
I think those are excellent points. And what occurred to me, like what you were saying about teachers need to be able to do that. Well, I think often though it's something similar to like what I find with my students when I want them to start taking agency over their learning, when I want them to start leading
Mm,
their learning. I go through a period of time where I have to almost convince them, no, I want you to do this. I want you to take charge. Like,
absolutely.
no, I'm handing you it's yours. It's almost like um, teachers need that. I don't know if it's permission, but that culture that says you're a professional
Absolutely.
and you are respected as such. What are you interested in? What areas do you want to learn more about? How can as an admin, how can I um, help you with your journey? What do I need to do to be able to help facilitate that so you can go for it? Because I think that is so empowering to
Hmm.
know that your administrator, to know that they believe that you are a skilled, competent professional that should go explore.
Hmm.
And that's where it really becomes, we don't need to be cookie cutters in our buildings. We need to develop skills and be the best who we are authentically. And yes, of course, there's professional development training that we all need to have for certain aspects of running our buildings and supporting the structures within those systems of learning.
Hmm.
So I get that. I don't really mean that. But beyond that, if Patrick, you and technology, you are so passionate about the use of that, and you're so passionate about putting that knowledge into the hands of, we're talking equity, into all school systems and all people.
Absolutely.
That's your passion. And I'm passionate about these set of things, and we should have this because together, we add so much to a
Hmm.
community. And that's really, I don't want my students to be cookie cutters. I want them to be unique, and I want them to be fully realized in who they are, because that's rich. And I want my colleagues to feel that way too, because Deb is so awesome at doing Deb, and Mike is so great at Mike, and he should be more Mike.
Now, I couldn't agree more. Everybody has, just like our students, every teacher has a thing that really drives them, something they're really passionate about, and things they're really good at. And then when you build that collective community that says, this is a safe place to go out and explore these new things, try these new things, even fail at these
Yes.
new things. And then on the flip side, recognize that hard work in some way at our school divisions and let teachers get maybe research points or give them opportunities to present at faculty meetings and show these things that they're passionate about, that
Yeah.
really recognizes that learning and the fact that we trust you enough. We're not only going to give you credit, but we want to give you a stage to share that too.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And one of the aspects that really, I think maybe is the most powerful in that is giving others the opportunity, helping amplify who these like the learning, the passion, the interests of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And doing so and doing that, helping promote what's important to other people, you help them see themselves, in a different way, and as such a valuable piece to that, like you said, collective community. And I'm not sure there's anything. It's one of the most powerful experiences to have somebody say, "Oh, I want to hear your story," or "I want to know more about what you have to say."
Absolutely. Yeah, and
It's
I think
transformational.
you hit on another really important thing there, as far as people need to feel that comfort, but then, like we're discussing now, like they have to feel it, but then they have to see it realized. So that's where that
Hmm.
stage comes in. That's where that
Yes.
opportunity to share comes in, because you gotta talk the talk, but you gotta walk the walk on the flip side and actually get into it. Um, Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, like, I think, like, um, and by doing that, so you are, let's say you're passionate. Well, it is about equity. A lot of what you do is about equity, digital equity.
Hmm.
Um, you having an opportunity to share that and talk to it and talk about, the things that excite you about that, and solving those issues. You having the stage to do that, then of course I learn about that.
Hmm.
And if I have if that isn't a strong area for me, or if I just am curious, then I can go in that direction and go,
Hmm.
find you or pursue that on my own, and vice versa, like whoever shares. But I think that's how we can learn. And one of the we can learn about how much we need to learn, is what I mean, is by you sharing your thing, I can find out, oh, I don't know anything about that. I need to know more. But
Absolutely.
I think that's the value. When we talked about, you introduced me and spoke about Twitter.
Hmm.
That's what Twitter's done for me. And when I say that to people that aren't really familiar with Twitter or don't use it, I know I don't sound like I make any sense at all, but
That happens to me often when I go on my tangents.
yeah, right, in our tangents, right.
Hmm.
But I would say, um, that I'm not sure, I haven't found it yet, in terms what speaks to me and what has offered me the opportunity to really explore areas of interest for me in education, connect with other people, and incredible opportunities that I never would have had in any other capacity. Twitter has done that for me as a professional, in a professional learning community that I've cultivated. So I really, really want to talk about that.
Yeah, and I will say, I think one, and I forget what conference it was at, but Twitter really hit for me in the power of it, and you just touched on it in the opening of doors, as far as
Mm-hmm.
opening the doors not only to professional learning opportunities, but then that virtual PLN that you then begin to cultivate as you start to follow people and as you start to follow hashtags and things along those lines. It opens up a completely new world to kind of instant, on demand, not only learning, but collaboration, and
Mm-hmm.
a place to, as you build that and you get those like people surrounding you, you then have that safety net even outside of your building, that you can launch ideas out, you can ask for feedback, and people are, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, just the very giving nature of a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
that you connect with has
Mm-hmm.
blown me away.
Yeah, just it has blown me away. I and it continues to, like, as I reach new levels in my learning and
Mhm.
aptitude and what I can bring to the table, new opportunities continue to open up and reveal themselves to me that I'm able to take a part of. Um, going back a little bit, my first session, I talked about student-led learning. I talked about how that was really a big deal to me as a, from my own experience as a parent, and also then, as a teacher. But I wanted to say that the connection with that and to professional development happened through Twitter. So there's that connector. I'm really thankful for an invitation I had in my district to attend an Ed Leader 21 conference 2 years ago. This conference, I don't know if you're familiar with Ed Leader 21 or what they do, but they put on an annual conference that is centered around 21st century learning and teaching, and specifically the portrait of a graduate work that they do. And on the very day that we arrived in Phoenix and got to the hotel where all of this conference would be taking place over the next 3 days, on the very night, I met the conference leader in the lobby of the hotel. My superintendent introduced me to him, Ken Kay. And Ken said, "Oh, Abby, great day. I'm so glad you could be here. This is not going to be like any conference you've ever attended." And I'm like, "Oh, I haven't really been to that many, nothing like this." And he said, "This isn't going to be something that happens to you. It's going to be an experience." And I just thought about that. I thought, that's incredible. And he was right. I left there and I was so fired up, lit up about student-centered learning and about what schools could be. If you are familiar with that book by Ted Dintersmith, Ted was a keynote speaker at the conference that year. I just was like, this is what it should be. This is not only what it could be, it's what schools should be. Students should be leading. Students should be identifying problems and solutions. They should be connected to community. They should be connected to real world, authentic doing. And they should be finding these solutions and carrying them out. And they should be doing more in our own buildings, running things, having a part in it.
Couldn't agree more.
So I leave there and I'm just 21st century skills, 4 C's, 5 C's. How do I know more? How can I find out more about this? I think I emailed my superintendent, assistant superintendent, asking them to help me get more. And I decided to go on Twitter. I'd had a professional account. I did nothing with it for like a year. Didn't even understand how to do Twitter. Knew nothing. And I know, like in the search bar, I searched up 21st century learning. Well, that's what started it. Literally, that's what started it. I found people at the conference that I had, listened to that on stage. I started following them. I started reading everything I could about what people were doing with student-centered learning and 21st century learning. I followed hashtags, I followed companies, I followed leaders, I followed anybody that was talking about it. I started reading articles that were posted because they were posted through Twitter. I started watching videos about it because it was posted through Twitter. You can access so much information. And I never would have come in contact. I wouldn't have even known where to look for the things. Just in a Google search. This was curated, great stuff. But if you're interested in whatever it is in education, whatever the thing is, you can find it. You can connect with it. And you can connect with individuals that are leading and using and doing the things you're interested in. I just was fascinated with the level of accessibility I had to experts. I think that was what was thrilling to me. Um, and I just, I could start in as just a novice. I could just come right where I was. I didn't have to be an equal and expert. I was there to learn. And so over time, I started cultivating a PLN. I started cultivating different learning communities. And I started actually becoming really good friends with people. Some of my greatest friends are connections I've made through Twitter. And I've had so many incredible opportunities that just have enriched not just my professional life, but really my life.
Now, I would agree completely. And I think a lot of people follow kind of a certain trajectory into Twitter. And I think a lot of times it does start with something that lights the fire, and they get into Twitter, but maybe things get busy and they just kind of sit in the background and maybe observe, maybe curate some things coming from it. And then maybe another spark happens, or that spark gets reignited and they launch back in, and then they start doing some of those searches, and those searches lead to people to follow, just like your story unfolded. And then you start to look at, okay, well, these people are tweeting with maybe this hashtag, I'm going to check that out. And then you go down that and you start connecting with a few more people.
And there's great rabbit holes.
Absolutely. And then you get into the world of something like Twitter chats, and there's chats across all kinds of different content areas and topics, just like there are hashtags, and there's tons of different places you can go. But as I recommend to everybody, do not feel in any way negative or like you're not doing it right if you start small. Tiptoe your way in and just do those searches. There's nothing wrong with doing that for a stretch of time before you start with hashtags and start with chats. Be comfortable with how you go, just like you would recommend for your students. And we've touched on it a few times, is that comfort level is going to be a little bit different for each person as far as when they hit that point, that inner efficacy is where they need it to be to feel comfortable. When we first say to students, and I'm assuming you've had this reaction, it's yours, lead it, go for it. And when I say that to teachers, I actually see the same thing 20 years in age or so apart of, but I've never been allowed to do that before. I'm not sure how to do that. Am I allowed to do that? And that's where I think Twitter is one of those stepping stones where people really start to build that comfort of chasing their own learning and going into the things they're passionate about. And as they get to a certain point, then they think, oh, I got good stuff too. I'm going to start sharing my things out.
Yeah, it's honing your own voice. It's the opportunity to like you verbalizing that, you answering a reply in a chat about how you feel about a certain aspect of teaching that they are talking about, whether it's SEL or whether it's in this circumstance. There's so many that we're in right now with remote learning. There are so many fabulous remote learning, remote teaching resources, support, webinars, just exactly what we're doing here. Register for a free professional development course. There is so much right now. And I don't think that a lot of people know how to access that, but it's right. Like Twitter's such a fantastic place for that.
Absolutely. There's so many different avenues you can go to. And I know I will speak for myself, but I think I'm comfortable also offering it on your side that anybody watching this that is interested in kind of tiptoeing in or wants some different pointers. I know in this, we haven't necessarily walked you through this is how you set up an account, this is how you do things, but I would be more than happy to work with anybody to do that. And Abby will as well.
Absolutely. I would love that.
Too, we have another presentation as part of the Brainstorm conference from Darcy that is called Staying Aloft in the Twitter Sphere. And she touches on some of those things as well. And as you get more into it, if you're looking at, say, Twitter chats, for instance, Darcy touches on TweetDeck, which is another tool tied to Twitter, actually owned by Twitter, but it is a godsend to follow different streams that'll keep it nicely curated for you into different things and let you do chats easily.
Yeah, it's really, really fantastic.
I would be interested if you could maybe share some of your maybe some of your just tips for people. either if they're getting started or if they're getting ready to dive deeper? I know we've touched on some things already, and
Right,
maybe
kind of
even if you
generally.
want to launch out some people maybe that you started with, that might be good starting points for people as well.
Sure. So I would first say that some of the things that I found very useful, very helpful, uh, as a U.S. history teacher. Okay,
Mhm.
one of the ways I started into Twitter was I wondered about how other teachers were teaching certain topics.
Mm,
And so I not only did I put in the hashtag, like a broad term, like student-led learning is a pretty broad term,
mm,
but I would put in specific things. So even without a hashtag in a search bar, you could add um, Civil War PBL or um, presentation or suffrage presentation,
mm,
or
mhm,
if you wanted something even more specific, like Socratic seminar on blah, it'll search those things and find you, connect you with tweets that have those words in them. But in the very beginning, I spent a lot of time doing searches for things like where I would put, because I didn't know who to follow. When you're
mm,
first starting, how do you know who to follow?
mhm,
But you could do something like the at
mm, mhm.
handle, symbol, and then history, civics, or if it was biology or whatever, it'll bring up people who have that in their name, their
Mhm.
Twitter handle. And that's also been a really great way just to start finding follows.
Absolutely.
Finding a chat on certain specific topics that you are interested in
Mm,
can be really key. And so you can Google, you can in Twitter search education chats or social studies chat, something specific. But once you have found a community, then following the people that are involved in that becomes just, that becomes a really
mhm.
easy way to access specific communities. And curating a Twitter PLN is really fun. It's fantastic, but you got
I
to
would agree.
start, and you can't be afraid
Mhm.
to just get in there. You're not going to do it wrong. Um,
And we touched on this, but I am continually surprised by the fact that even if you roll in and you have 2 followers, like maybe
yeah,
a couple of your kids or colleagues found you and they're following you, but then you follow somebody that has 20, 30,000 followers
right,
and you send a tweet to them. I
sure.
would say probably at least 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 times I've done something like that, I've gotten an actual response. And that
Yep,
doesn't happen as much just cold emailing somebody. Those emails get lost, but somehow Twitter finds
it's
its
so
way
much
through a
more
lot of the time.
personal.
Absolutely.
Um, I have contacted experts in their different areas, or people off of a news story that I thought was really interesting that I would like to maybe feature them as a like
Mhm,
Skype into my
mhm,
classroom kind of, or Google Hangout into my classroom. I have connected with teachers from all over the world, uh, and they have enriched what I'm doing, and learning experiences that we've
mm,
collaborated on so much. I just, it's been unbelievable.
yeah. Some
Authors,
Oh, yeah.
authors love to join classrooms.
Absolutely. I did an author visit that was set up through Twitter this year with first graders, with an author that writes children's books, and they were just blown away. This
Yeah,
famous person was in their room, and obviously it was Hangouts, but it the looks on their faces and the fact that Twitter made that possible, that helped me extend that, and that teacher is now at least sold on using Twitter in certain ways, and I love the fact that that opened another door for them. And as we get towards kind of the end of our talk today, I wanted to give you an opportunity to think about Twitter and not only how it's kind of helped you, but could you share a story with us maybe of a lesson or something you try? I know student-centered learning is definitely there, but
Right.
maybe something you never would have considered doing before that connections on Twitter maybe helped you with, or even sparked that idea for you.
Oh, yes. Yes, I got something. So one of the things that I have, because I teach U.S. history, and I have a really specific content to follow,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes turning over a project or something to students to let them try to find a problem or an issue to solve that they feel really passionate about. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes that's challenging in a really specific content or curriculum.
Absolutely.
I also work with a group of advisory students where I have more of an open, range of topics that we could work with and explore. And one of the things that I am really, really interested in are the sustainable development goals, the
From the
SDGs,
UN. Yep.
the global goals, yeah. And I've been really inspired by a lot of what we saw this year about climate change and activism. And I'm not trying to get into a political thing here at all. It's really about what, to me, I think, like letting students see here in our own community, right here, what issues are there with things like clean water. We get notices all the time from our towns in Shenandoah County that there's contamination or bacteria, or there are this many particles and whatever it is. We have issues of clean water right here in Shenandoah County. What about food scarcity? What about equality with working standards? All different kinds of things exist right in our own backyards that affect, in a much broader sense, bigger communities that we're connected to. But I think I don't know. I haven't known a lot about any of the about teaching the global goals. There are tremendous resources, again, through Twitter, contacts that I've made, teachers that are leading this kind of work. And I've met two wonderful friends in Colorado that are teaching us, doing this work all the time with their students and making a huge difference. One teacher took her students to Rome last year as part of a huge youth global initiative and conference, and they presented some of the work they've done. I thought that was phenomenal. A talk about kids getting connected to other global communities and students, and seeing that we're all facing some of the same challenges was really powerful. I have another friend in Michigan who is doing work with her fifth graders that is just phenomenal. Really, really moving and inspiring. And so that's the kind of thing where I wouldn't have access to those people or what they're doing, how they're doing it. And they're so generous. They are constantly sharing resources with me, with anyone that's interested. But it's just, it has opened my eyes so much and connected me on a much broader level than just my classroom, just as school, but in a bigger context.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't necessarily pinpoint one thing, but the amount of things I've learned via Twitter and the amount of people I've connected with has helped me to grow exponentially since I've really kind of dove in. And I hope that this video helps people to kind of at least feel more comfortable going that route and seeing some of the awesome possibilities that can come from it. And as always, taking time to learn with you and talk with you, Abby, is time well spent for anybody. I sincerely
so much.
appreciate your time and the fact that we get not one but two different sessions as part of the Brainstorm conference is an awesome experience for everybody.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I'm so happy to be here with you and to talk about these things. And if I can help, if anybody would like to contact me about any of the things I've talked about, or if you want any help with anything, let me know. You can find me on Twitter at AW French 1. And I'm that's what I'm here for.
Awesome. Thank you.